I was cooking dinner and didn't feel like washing my hands 10,000 times to pick up the phone. I've become too lazy for most tasks, but I have technology to thank for that. I was alone in the house. For context, I live in a small cabin surrounded by some woods. The next house is a 10-minute walk from here, so I'm not so isolated. Still, at night it gets pretty quiet. I'm saying this in order for you to understand that there were no other sounds outside for the phone to pick up. The whole house was silent, apart from my voice and the sounds I made while cooking. I was texting my friend about some trip to the mountains. He'd asked me if I was going to bring my tent, to which I replied, "Yeah, I am." He texted back a minute later, "I didn't ask you where you were." I blinked a few times, reading the text from the lit-up screen. What did he mean? I checked my text, which said, "Yeah, I am here." I hadn't dictated the last word. Of course, I didn't initially think something weird was going on. I dictated back, "I meant I was bringing the tent. I don't know why it picked up here. I'm using voice to text. Sorry." I checked to see if the phone wrote the message correctly, and it had. 10 minutes later, I'd told Brian I didn't want to bring my shotgun, but I would if I had to. He texted back, "What?" I frowned and left my pan on the stove to check what I'd written before. "I don't want to bring my shotgun, but she's here." Was that some type of autocorrect? Some function to fill in sentences? AI? I don't know what's up with my phone. Sorry. I don't know what's up with my phone. She's standing by the sink. Sorry. Who is standing by the sink? I looked up to the sink. No one was there, and yet the sound of oil sizzling had been turned by my paranoia into the sound of someone breathing. No one. My fucking autocorrect is acting up. No one. Don't open the oven. Are you fucking with me, dude? It's funny. Are you bringing your shotgun or not?
I glared at the oven. Should I check? I didn't really want to. "I'll call you after I'm done," I dictated. "I'll call you after I'm done." "She's almost done." Who the fuck is she? My throat was dry. I turned off the stove and washed my hands, absently wiping them with the towel while staring at the oven. I grabbed the phone. I still wanted to see if it would pick up something else, so I tried one last time. "I don't know." The phone picked up. "She wants to come out of the oven now." My heart stopped. My legs searched desperately for the fastest way upstairs, almost tripping, and I basically crawled to my bedroom, where I called Brian and told him what had happened. He figured that I was just freaked out about living alone for so long, in the woods, and offered to pick me up and drive me to his place. I reluctantly agreed. When he arrived, I sprinted past the kitchen and got into the car. He thought that the whole thing was funny, but I couldn't bring myself to smile back. While we were talking on the phone, I'd heard the oven ding downstairs.
The worst deaths, in my opinion, are accidental. I read last week about a mother who rolled onto her newborn and suffocated it. Every year, toddlers die from being left in hot cars. And then you hear stories of kids playing games, like one boy who hid in an unplugged freezer and suffocated to death during hide and seek. Can you imagine? Can you imagine being the person responsible in any of these situations? To me, this is so much more terrifying than the prospect of the paranormal. I'd much rather be haunted by a ghost than by guilt over unintentionally hurting someone. My husband, Wade, is the opposite. He's unbothered by accidents, but petrified of horror movies about demons or vengeful ghosts. But as I told him, none of those things are real, so why be scared? He counters that accidents are without malice, therefore not as scary as murderous ghosts that might be real. I guess he has a point. About the lack of malice, not about ghosts that might be real. I know they're not, because if they were, my best friend would definitely be haunting me. I guess in some ways, she is. You see, whenever I read about a prank gone wrong, I stop breathing for a moment. I'm choked by guilt. After all these years, I still don't know if it was my fault. I was never charged, and my friends insist I need to stop blaming myself. But how can I? How can I move on, not knowing if it's because of me? Rosa got into the suitcase on her own. Lakeisha and I helped her. We were all drunk, giggling. She was supposed to surprise Bolin. She had a huge crush on him. Let me back up. Let me try to explain. We were at a party. Our friend group had been together for years, and we rented out this lodge. Me, my husband Wade, who back then was just my crush, his buddies Bolin and Tucker and JB, and the girls who were my besties, Lakeisha and Rosa and Kay. There were also some other friends who stopped by who we'd met earlier in the day while hiking. I can't remember their names anymore. What I do remember is that we all had a lot to drink. And Rosa, she was in her flirty phase.
Rosa was my best friend, but she wasn't perfect. She was like a butterfly who sips from every flower, a real heartbreaker, beautiful and passionate. I was a little bit jealous of the attention she had, and also kind of in awe of her. Whoever she was with fell hard, like she was the love of their life. But she never committed. She'd been on again, off again with JB, then seduced Wade, which was kind of bitchy because she knew I had a crush on him. She'd even flirted with bisexuality with Kay. Now her eyes were on Bolin. I forget whose idea it was for her to hide in the suitcase, mine or hers. All the luggage was in the basement because that's where the boys had put it when we'd arrived at the lodge. Lakeisha said something like, "Bolin's suitcase is big enough to hide a body." And that's when Rosa, or me, had the idea she'd hide in it. And Rosa decided to spice up the prank by wearing lingerie. When Bolin took the suitcase up to his room and opened it, he'd find a sexy surprise. We were stupid. None of us had good judgment, especially since we were tipsy. Once Rosa squeezed inside, whining about her hair getting caught in the zipper, Lakeisha and I went to go badger the boys to bring everyone's bags to their rooms. I remember Bolin delivered mine. I was staying outside in a tent with Kay. The lodge didn't have enough bedrooms for everybody, and we wanted to sleep under the stars. Kay had no idea about the prank and was confused when I kept urging Bolin to go inside and check his bag. Wink, wink. After he left, I told her about Rosa. And because Kay was actually sober, she told me to go make sure Rosa wasn't stuck in there. So I checked to make sure the suitcase wasn't still at the bottom of the stairs. At least I think I did. But I was drunk. While all of us were sitting outside watching fireworks later, I noticed Bolin missing and asked Wade where he went. Bolin had gone up to his room early. Since he hadn't come back, Lakeisha and I assumed Rosa was in there with him and that her lingerie stunt had worked. In fact, Lakeisha and I were whispering about it all evening, quietly, so as not to make any of the boys jealous.
In the morning, when Bolin came down, Lakeisha and I asked him about last night, all smirks. He looked clueless. Then Lakeisha asked where Rosa was, and he was still clueless. But what about his suitcase? Hadn't he opened it? He said someone had shoved all his clothes into the closet in a pile. He wasn't sure why. He assumed he was being pranked or something and hadn't seen his suitcase. "So you never opened it?" asked Lakeisha. Dread bloomed in my belly. Oh God, I thought. Oh God. Oh God. Lakeisha was telling him how we'd taken his clothes out, and Rosa had hidden inside, hoping to surprise him in her lingerie. And Bolin blushed and said he was gay. Gay? But his coming out to us hardly even registered, because where was Rosa? None of us knew. We quickly went to wake everyone else up, hoping someone had seen her last night. Oh God, oh God, oh God. I checked. Didn't I check? I swear I checked. Prayers ran through my head, but I was drunk. I wasn't sure if I really had. I went downstairs to the basement. There was the suitcase, still tucked away at the bottom of the stairs. It was exactly where we'd left it when we zipped Rosa inside the night before. Nobody wanted to open the suitcase. The boys argued about who had left it there. JB said he'd lifted it but noticed how heavy it was and asked someone else to take it. Each of them had thought another of the guys was going to grab it. Bowling didn't think to check because he found his clothes piled in the closet. I'm ashamed to say I went outside when Lakeisha reached for the zipper. Wade came out and joined me. He told me dead bodies, gore, things like that scared him. While the others checked the contents of the suitcase, Wade and I sat outside. As we heard the gasps and whispers of, "Oh God," his fingers gripped mine tightly, and I put my head in my hands and sobbed. She had suffocated, of course, but it had taken a long time. The police wondered why none of us had heard her gasping for help, but Kay sheepishly told them about the fireworks. A prank gone wrong, authorities ruled. My friends said then, and still say now, that ultimately Rosa was the one most responsible for her own misfortune, that she had made her own decisions, that all of us were a little guilty, but none of us was wholly responsible for a tragic accident. But
it was my hand that closed the zipper. I've lain in bed thinking about her gasping for air. Why didn't she scream? Why didn't we hear any muffled shouts? I imagine her, squeezed into the darkness, while her pleas for help go unanswered, and I can't breathe. But the real reason I'm writing this is because this morning I saw a story in the news about a woman in her underwear, found strangled on the beach. My husband switched away from the reporting, and when I asked why, he looked surprised and said he thought it might trigger me. "Why?" I asked. "It wasn't a prank." He thought it might remind you of Rosa. You know, the lingerie. I suppose that aspect was similar. To be honest, that part of the tragedy had never really stuck with me as much. But now I think about how we all stopped talking about her afterward. How her death was only a blip in the news. No details were released. In our friend group, Rosa's death became a taboo subject, almost like she'd never been with us at all. We all silently agreed to forget her. But the more I think of that report on the news, the more I'm getting that feeling from that day, that top of the stairs feeling, like I'm looking down and seeing something I don't want to see, that oh God, oh God, oh God sense of impending dread. And I'm about to sick. Because Wade dated her too, and loved her. And I'm more and more certain I looked down the stairs before the fireworks, and there was no suitcase there. And now I'm wondering, if Wade never saw what was in the suitcase, never picked it up, or opened it, or moved it, how did he know she was in her lingerie when she died?
After a grueling day of work, my husband, Connor, greeted me at the door and asked how my day was. "Miserable," I said, handing him my coat. The apartment was filthy. I could tell that Connor didn't get any cleaning done today, just like yesterday and the day before. "Your boss again?" "How'd you guess?" I wanted nothing more than to flop down on the couch, but I couldn't because it was covered in dirty laundry and half-eaten bags of flamin' hot Cheetos. "Don't worry," Connor said. "I've got dinner already made. You just worry about relaxing." Dinner was 2 freshly microwaved Hungry Man Salisbury steaks. I didn't even care. I sat down and started eating. "Any luck finding a job?" I asked. "I thought I could start streaming on Twitch," Connor smiled. "A real job," I emphasized. "No, nothing yet." Connor's smile faded, and he began to push around his frozen dinner. "Something on your mind?" "Yeah," Connor said. "Your boss. My boss, Dale Anderson, is an inappropriate creep, and I'm his latest obsession. He is determined to make me his plaything. I want to quit, but then we'd both be unemployed. What about him?" "I've been doing some thinking.
Never a good sign, and I've got a solution to both our problems. Go on, I said, because I couldn't wait to hear this. What if you encouraged him? Excuse me? He's your boss, right? And he's rich. So you make him think you want to go on a date. Then you do go on a date, and the second he makes a move, you start screaming bloody murder, saying how unprofessional it is. Keep in mind, you're recording the whole thing, and then you threaten to expose him unless he pays you off, which he'd obviously do. Then we live off that money until the economy improves and we can get better jobs. 2 birds, 1 stone, and all that. So, what'd you say?
Connor was 100% serious. There are a million things I want to say, scream, but I settled on sure. Sure? I'll do it. How'd it go? Connor asked. Give me a minute. I brushed some Cheetos off the couch and sat down. Yeah, Connor said. Take as long as you need. I took a deep, cleansing breath, and there was a knock at the door. It was the police. Officers, Connor uttered. How can I help you? Are you Connor Wilson? Afraid so, Connor joked. Is this your wallet? The officer held up a plastic baggie with Connor's wallet inside. Oh yes, I lost it this morning. Thanks for returning it. Book him, the officer said, and his partner put Connor in cuffs. What's going on? Connor cried, struggling against the restraints. We found your wallet at the scene of a murder. Bet you thought you'd got away with it. After the officers took Connor away, I couldn't help but smile. I mean, you know what they say, 2 birds, 1 stone and all that.
How old must he be now? 8? 9? I stared at my neighbor, unsure what she was asking. She read the confusion on my face. Your cute little guy. I saw him biking down the lane earlier. He must be old enough for grade 4 now, right? Mrs. Babbage was a bit on the older side, but I never thought she had shown signs of dementia. Not until now. I wasn't exactly sure what to say. She proceeded to stare at me, tilting her head, as if I was the one misremembering. I awkwardly opened my mouth. Oh, right, my little guy. She brightened. Yes, he must be in grade 4, right? Sure, I mean, yes, he is. What a cute little guy, she said, and returned to watering her flowers. It was an odd, slightly sad moment. I wondered if her husband had seen glimmers of this too. I could only hope that this was a momentary blip, and not the sign of anything Alzheimer's related. I took the rest of my groceries out of my car and entered home. I had a long day of teaching, and I just wanted to sit back, unwind, and watch something light on TV. But as soon as I took off my first shoe, I smelled it. Something burning on the stove. Something burning with lots of cheese on it. The hell? I dashed over to the kitchen and almost fell down, partially because I was wearing only 1 shoe, but also because there was a scrawny little boy frying Kraft dinner? I let out a half scream.
But very quickly I composed myself into the same assertive adult who taught at a university. What? Excuse me. Who are you? What are you doing here? The boy's blonde, willow-like hair whipped around his face as he looked at me with equal surprise. Papa, what do you mean? I'm here. I'm here. He was a scared, confused child. I couldn't quite place the bizarre inflection of his words. Do you want some KD, Papa? Have some. Have some. Was that a Russian accent? It took me a second to realize he was wearing an oversized shirt that looked just like mine. Was he wearing my clothes? I held out my palms like I would at a lecture, my standard everyone settle down gesture, and cleared my throat. I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, or what this is. The boy widened his eyes, still frightened by my intensity. He stirred the food with a wooden spoon. "It's KD, Papa. Your favorite. Chili cheese kind. Don't you remember?" His name was Dmitri, and he claimed to be my son. Apparently, at some point, there had been a mother, but he didn't remember much about her. He only remembered me. "You've been Papa my whole life, Papa." I tried having a sit-down conversation. In fact, I tried to have many sit-down conversations where I explained to Dmitri that would be impossible. But it always ended with him clutching me with impassioned tears, begging me to remember him. The confusion only got worse when my mother called. "How is my grandson doing?" she asked. I didn't know how to reply. The conversation grew awkward and tense until eventually I clarified my whole predicament. "Mom, what are you talking about? I don't have a son. I've never had a son." My mother gasped a little, then laughed and scolded me, saying I shouldn't joke around like that, because of course I've always had a son, a smart little guy who will be celebrating 9 this weekend. I hung up.
I stood petrified in my own kitchen, staring at this strange, expectant Slavic child. For the next 10 minutes, all I could do was ask where his parents were, and he just continued to act frightened, like any authentic kid might, and replied with the same question, "How did you forget me, Papa?" My method wasn't getting me anywhere, so I decided to play along. I cleared my head with a shot of espresso. I told him my brain must have been scrambled from overworking, and I apologized for not remembering I was his father. He brightened immediately. "It's okay, Papa, it's okay." He gave me a hug. "You always work so hard." The tension dropped further as Dmitri finished making the noodles and served himself some. I politely declined and watched him eat, and he watched me watch him eat. "So you're okay now? You're not angry?" His accent was so odd. "No," I said. "I'm not angry. I was just a little scrambled." His eyes shimmered, looking more expectant. "So we can be normal now?" A wan chill trickled down my neck. I didn't really know what to say, but for whatever reason, I did not want to say, "Yes, we can be normal now," because this was not normal. Far from it. This child was not my son. He started playing with his food and quivered a little, like a worried mouse seeking reassurance. "Everything will be fine," I eventually said. "No need to stress. Enjoy your noodles."
To my shock and dismay, I discovered that Dmitri also had his own room. My home office had somehow been replaced by a barren, clay-walled chamber filled with linen curtains, old wooden toys, and a simple bed. The smell of bread and earth wafted throughout. I watched him play with his blocks and spinning tops for about half an hour before he started to yawn and say he wanted to go to sleep. It was the strangest thing, tucking him in. He didn't want to switch to pajamas or anything. He just sort of hopped into his straw bed and asked me to hold his hand. Dmitri's fingers were cold, slightly clammy little things. It was very bizarre, comforting him like my own son, but it appeared to work. He softened and lay still. He didn't ask for any lullaby or bedtime story. He just wanted to hold my hand for a minute. "Thank you, Papa. I'm so glad you're here. So glad you can be my Papa. Good night." I inched my way out of the room and watched him through the crack of his door. At about 9:30, he gave small, childlike snores. He had fallen asleep. Cautiously, I called Pat, my coworker, with whom I shared close contact. She had the same reaction as my mother.
"Harlan, of course you have a son. From your marriage to Svetlana." "My marriage to who?"
You met her in Moscow when you were touring Europe. It was true that I had guest lectured 15 years ago across the UK, Germany, and Russia. I was awarded a grant for it, but I only stayed in Moscow for 3 days. I never met anyone named Svetlana. Don't be weird, Harlan. Come on. Pat's conviction was very disturbing. You and Svetlana were together for many years. We were? How many? Look, I know the divorce was hard, but you shouldn't pretend your ex-wife doesn't exist. I'm not pretending. I'm being serious. I don't remember her. Then get some sleep. I sipped on my second espresso of the night. But I have slept. I'm fine. Well, then I don't get what this joke is. Knock it off. It's creepy. I'm not joking. I'll see you tomorrow for the birthday. Birthday? Yes, your son's birthday. Jesus Christ. Good night, Harlan. Get some sleep. I didn't sleep that night. My efforts were spent scouring the filing cabinets and drawers throughout my house. I had credit card bills covering school supplies, kids' clothing shops, and costlier groceries. I even had pictures of Dmitri hung around the walls from various ages. It's like everything was conforming to this new reality. The harder I looked for clues to disprove my fatherhood, the more evidence I found confirming it. It was Dmitri who woke me up off the living room couch and said, "Uncle Boris is here." Uncle Boris? I peeked through the window and could see a very large blond man smiling back at me. Behind him was a gaggle of other relatives, all speaking Russian to each other. "Hello, Harlan!" The blond man's voice penetrated past the glass. "We are here for birthday!" They all looked excited and motioned to the front door. They were all wearing tunics and leggings. Traditional birthday clothes or something? I was completely floored. I didn't know what to do. So I just sort of nodded and subtly slinked back into my kitchen. Dmitri came to pull at my arm. "Come on, Papa. We have to let them in." "I don't know any of them." "Yes, you do, Papa. It's Uncle Boris. It's Uncle Boris." I yanked my hand away. It was one thing to pretend I was this kid's dad for a night. It was quite another to let a group of strangers into my house first thing in the morning. Dmitri frowned. "I'll open the door." "Wait! Hold on!" I grabbed Dmitri's shoulder. He turned away. "Let go!" I tried to pull him back, but then he dragged me into the living room again. Our struggle was on display for everyone outside. Boris looked at me with saucer eyes. Dmitri pulled harder, and I had no choice but to pull harder back. The boy hit his head on a table as he fell. Boris yelled something in Russian. Someone else hollered back. I heard hands trying to wrench open my door. "Dmitri, stop!" I said. "Let's just take a minute to—" "You're hurting me, Papa! Oi!" My front door unlocked. Footsteps barreled inside. I let go of my son and watched 3 large Slavic men enter my house with stern expressions. Dmitri hid behind them. "Is everything okay?" Boris peered down at me through his tangle of blonde hair. "Yes, sorry," I said, struggling to find words. "I'm just very confused." "Confused? Why were you hitting Dmitri?"
The little boy pulled on his uncle's arm and whispered something into his ear. Boris's expression furrowed. But before I could speak further, a slender pair of arms pushed aside all the male figures and revealed a woman with unwavering, bloodshot eyes. Something in me knew it was her. Svetlana. She wore a draped brown sheet as a dress, with skin so pale I could practically see her sinews and bones. It's like she had some extreme form of albinism. "Harlan," she said, somehow breaking my name into 3 syllables. Har-L-N. I've never been so instinctively afraid of a person in my life. It's like she had weaved herself out of the darkest edges of memory. I saw flashes of her holding my waist in Moscow, outside Red Square. Flashes of her lips whispering chants in the shadows of St. Basil's Cathedral. Svetlana held Dmitri's shoulder and then looked up at me.
Just tell him it will be normal. Tell him everything will be normal. No, this is not happening. None of this is real. Barefoot and still wearing the same clothes as yesterday, I bolted out the back of my house and hurtled towards my driveway. Before the rest of my new family could realize what was going on, I hopped into my Subaru and stepped on the gas. As I drove away from my house, I looked back into my rearview mirror, and I swear it didn't look like my house at all. I swear it looked like a thatched roof hut. Back at the university, I walled myself up in my study. I canceled all speaking arrangements for the next week, saying I needed a few personal days. No one in my department knew I had a son. Nothing in my study indicated I had an extended Russian family. When I asked Pat about our phone conversation last night, she responded with, "What conversation?" My mom said the same thing. With immense trepidation, I returned to my house the following day, and after setting foot back inside, I knew that everything had reverted back to the way it was before. No more framed pictures of Dmitri, no more alarming photo albums, and that clay-walled room where Dmitri spun tops and slept inside, it was just my home office again. To this day, I still have no clue what happened during that bizarre September weekend. But doing some of my own research, I'm starting to think I did encounter something in Moscow all those years ago. Some kind of lingering old curse, or a stray spirit, or a Chernaya Viedma, a black witch disguised as an ordinary woman. Although I haven't seen any evil things bubble up around my place since, every now and then I do have a conversation with Mrs. Babbage, and she seems to remember my son very well. Such a cute little guy, always waving hello. Did you know he offered me food once? I think it was Kraft Dinner.
This story is a true experience told to me many years ago by an old male friend whom I haven't seen in over a decade. Here I'll call him Michael. Michael had been running a small home security company with his wife for about 8 years. The business had finally begun to get on track with a bank loan approved. But just then, his wife, who had supported the company as managing director, was killed in a car accident. After that, Michael could no longer focus on his work. Even knowing it was wrong, he started blowing off meetings, spending his days staring at his wife's photo and drinking until the day was over. He had completely fallen apart, living like an empty shell. Eventually, his business plan collapsed. The bank cut off his loan, and he shut himself in at home, leaving the office abandoned. By the time he realized it, both the debt and the company were beyond saving. And then, he decided to end his own life. With his beard grown out, Michael went to a hardware store and bought the thickest rope he could find. Back at home, he went down to the basement, tied the rope to an exposed steel beam in the ceiling, and climbed up on a chair. When he put the rope around his neck, he felt far less fear than he had imagined. All it would take was kicking the chair, and everything would be over. He thought vaguely that stories about your life flashing before your eyes or needing courage to die were nothing but fiction, and he gave a bitter laugh. As he glanced down at the chair again, ready to finally die, he noticed something in front of him. He thought to himself, "All right, time to die," and looked at the chair. But just as he was about to do it, he realized something was standing there. It was small and distorted, barely 3 heads tall, something not of this world. Long, greasy hair hung down, and through the strands he saw round, bloodshot eyes that never blinked. Its mouth stretched unnaturally wide into a devilish grin. At that instant, a single word flashed through his mind: imp. It just stared at the chair Michael was standing on, and he could clearly feel its pitch-black malice, as if it were silently urging him to fall. Stunned, mouth open, he stared back in disbelief. The thing seemed to realize it was being seen, and their eyes met. It too looked startled that he could see it. The corners of its mouth dipped briefly, then it returned to its sly grin. "Mind if I take the kid if you're going to die?" it said, in a voice like a middle-aged man's, sounding almost pleased.
Unable to comprehend the situation, he blurted out, "I'm not going to die," and in that instant realized the horror of what he was about to do. He still had a 5-year-old daughter. Since his wife's death, his in-laws had been taking care of her for a while, seeing how he could no longer manage anything. You might think he was a terrible father, but losing his wife so suddenly had truly broken him. For the first time in a month of isolation, he remembered having left his daughter in his wife's parents' care. He pulled the rope from his neck and stepped down from the chair. He heard a sharp ch of a tongue click, and the thing vanished. But the sense of its presence lingered. He went straight to his wife's parents' house, apologized to his in-laws, and embraced his daughter. Both she and his in-laws cried and forgave him. Now he's paying off his debts while raising his daughter and working desperately as a sales rep. He told me this at the end. "I don't know what happens after you die, but things like that definitely exist. They pick up on the scent of death coming off weakened people who are thinking of dying, people like I was back then, and they come for you."